After 4 years of waiting, Hazbin Hotel has finally been released, and instead of reviewing the actual show people have waited so long for, I figured now would be the perfect time to reflect and review the original Hazbin Hotel pilot that became an internet sensation that revolutionized the web animation industry and has been an inspiration to tens of millions of people across the world. Although I doubt anyone watching this video hasn't already seen the pilot, I'm going to go over a brief summary of what happens in the pilot, so if you want to get right to the review, skip to the time displayed on screen. The pilot starts with a musical number by the Princess of Hell, Charlie, lamenting over her dreams and failures following an extermination that recently occurred in Hell, carried out by the Angels of Heaven. We then cut to a spider demon named Angel Dust buying some drugs, while witnessing an airship firing upon Hell below. The pilot, Sir Pentious, monologues about how he will soon take over Hell using his machines, but is interrupted when a demon named Cherry Bomb breaks into his ship and challenges him. We then cut to the Hell News Network covering these events and announces that they will soon have a segment with the Princess of Hell, who wants to share her passion project. When it's time for Charlie's segment, she pitches her concept for a hotel that rehabilitates sinners, so they can escape hell and get into heaven, so that they have a chance to escape the yearly extermination carried out by the angels. After getting a cold reception, she resorts to breaking out in song in a last-ditch effort to convince everyone, but still fails. After being paraded, she mentions that the hotel does have the famous porn star Angel Dust as a patron who believes in their cause. Unfortunately for Charlie, news breaks out that Angel got involved in a battle between Cherry Bomb and Sir Pentious, completely undermining the point she made and humiliating her on Hell-wide television. On the drive back to the hotel, Charlie's girlfriend Vaggie screams at Angel Dust for what he did, but Angel could seemingly care less. Shortly after arriving at the hotel, the cast is greeted by a demon named Alistair, who is more commonly known as the Radio Demon, who, according to Vaggie, is one of the most powerful and chaotic demons in all of Hell. Alistair, after seeing Charlie's fiasco on TV, makes a proposition that he wants to help Charlie run the hotel purely for entertainment purposes. Charlie, knowing how powerful Alistair is, takes the opportunity to get help from Alistair despite her not trusting him at all. Alistair then summons a demon named Husk to run the bar and a demon named Nifty to act as a maid for the hotel. Not long after, Alistair breaks into a musical number, but is interrupted when Sir Pentious begins attacking the hotel, but is easily subdued by Alistair using his powers, and the pilot ends with the cast heading back into the hotel. So like most VivziePop projects, the biggest appeal of Hazbin is its colorful cast of characters. Our main character Charlie is the Disney princess trope through and through. She has a heart of gold and an unrivaled amount of optimism that makes her a lovable and adorable lead character, if you don't take the character or the show itself too seriously. She's a little irksome at times with her hyperactive personality, but based on what the pilot presented, I think the writers did a very good job at balancing out her hyperactivity with some somber and grounded elements, like her being genuinely sad after her disastrous interview, and not being an oblivious airhead who's overly trusting when she met Alistair. And I think these elements are what really separates her from other Disney princess type characters or the overused bundle of joy trope we have seen time and time again. She's not a complete pushover, as we saw when she rebelled against Katie Killjoy and bluntly called out Alistair for being untrustworthy. She isn't naive, and despite the way she presents herself, I think she's a lot smarter and more mentally put together than the rest of the cast. Sure, she has family issues, puts too much faith into the residents of Hell, and can be impulsive, but she's not overly jaded like Vaggie and has actual social intelligence, unlike Angel Dust and Alistair, who both don't know how to hide away the worst of themselves when they are in a situation where they need something. Additionally, there are also small visual hints that she may have a more psychopathic side to her, since she's a native of Hell and Lucifer's daughter, that I am really looking forward to seeing more of, and hopefully will be handled as well as the rest of her personality traits to create a truly dynamic character. Accompanying Charlie throughout the pilot, we have Vaggie. I can't say much about Vaggie. Like Charlie, she is a living, breathing archetype, but there is almost no point where she breaks away from that personality preset. She is the same as she is in the first scene she's introduced, as she is throughout the rest of the pilot. The aggressive, moody supporting character with trust issues. She's basically the Squidward of the show without the relatability. What makes Vaggie even more concerning is that she seemingly has no backstory or side plot laid out for her. Almost every character in the show has some hint at an unexpected aspect of their character, with the exception of her, which, if all these other characters get opportunities for character arcs or a twist, Vaggie is going to stand out as extremely stagnant and purposeless in comparison. A good example to prove my point is Husk. Husk is essentially the same character as Vaggie, but less aggressive and more apathetic. So he's basically an alcoholic Squidward. But unlike Vaggie, he also has 2 side stories revolving around his character. What is his history with Alistair, and what will become of Angel Dust's romantic advances towards him? Husk's existence actively supports Angel Dust's characterization by making Angel Dust want to engage with another character. Sure, you could say that Vaggie does the same for Charlie, but is there ever a moment where Charlie is made a more interesting character because of Vaggie's interactions with her, like Angel and Husk? Not really. If anything, Vaggie acts more as a tool to goad Charlie into monologuing her thoughts to the audience, which is a role that could just as easily been filled by Angel Dust or Alistair. Alistair is the poster child of Hazbin Hotel. Everyone loves him for a reason. He is laid back, charming, confident, and his constant smile tells the audience that he is in control of every situation he is involved in. He is as much a main character as Charlie is, with multiple hints throughout the show that his origins and motivations are more than what they seem, which adds a side mystery to the show, and he is the driving force behind the Hazbin Hotel itself. That's not to say the premise wouldn't work without him, but making the entire cast of the show have to rely on this all-powerful demon who's as untrustworthy as they come is a great way to make the cast feel uncomfortable enough to spur them into action, but also sets up so many unique character interactions in the future that I can't wait to see. Alistair certainly is one of the most interesting parts of the entire show, and without him, it would be missing a core component that causes enough intrigue to see what's going to happen next. Oh, and his voice and the radio effect on it is pure ear candy. It sure would be a shame if they were to change it. But although Alistair may be the most intriguing character of the show, I can't say he is the most entertaining. That title belongs to Angel Dust. Angel Dust is essentially if you took Blitz from Helluva Boss and made him better in nearly every way. He is the primary comedy relief that will win over most of the fans despite him being a genuinely terrible person throughout most of the pilot. He is a 100% unapologetic jerk who doesn't let anyone or anything get under his skin and exudes pretentious confidence. He's one of those characters that if you met in real life you would and should absolutely hate, but in the world of Hazbin Hotel, he is the fan favorite, and even though I don't like him as much as everyone else does, even I can't deny that his wittiness and charm bring about some of the best moments this pilot has to offer. As for side characters, the biggest ones of note are Serpentious, Katie Killjoy, Nifty, and Cherry Bomb. Serpentious is an amazing addition to the cast, with his entire shtick being he's from the 19th century, so he doesn't understand modern lingo. This is a refreshing form of comedy for VivziePop, especially when paired alongside the usual sex and swear style of comedy VivziePop is known for. Katie Killjoy is one of those characters that are so hateable that you begin to like them, and I hope in the future her oppressive and domineering personality affects other characters besides Charlie, as I can just imagine this character interacting with Alistair or Angel Dust, leading to some hilarious back and forths. Nifty is a hyperactive, seemingly harmless psychopath who, despite having the least screen time of any character, is already one of my favorites, and I can't wait to see more of her. And then there's Cherry Bomb. Cherry Bomb is the punk rock anarchist stereotype to a T, and I hate her because I hate that kind of character, but her relationship with Angel Dust has a lot of potential to explore his character more, and depending on how she is utilized in the future, could create some hilarious scenarios. This cast is extremely overbloated and could have used some trimming. But to the reverence of this pilot, every single character, with the exception of Vaggie, who is introduced naturally, feel like they have a role to fill, are all entertaining in their own ways, and all contribute to making a dynamic and entertaining cast of characters to emphasize the wide range of personalities and backgrounds that make up Hell's populace. The fact that the writers were able to introduce and utilize nearly every single one of the characters in this massive cast is incredibly impressive and an accomplishment that few shows are able to achieve. But interesting characters mean nothing if the show they are in falls flat in its storytelling and pacing, and this show doesn't. In fact, this pilot is a contender for the best paced indie animation project I have ever seen. The show starts with an intro that— let me talk about this intro. This intro was a huge gamble that I believe paid off in the long term, but it didn't need to be as risky as it is. When you click on a show that is advertised as an adult cartoon set in hell, and the first few minutes is an angelic silhouette musical, that is bound to confuse many newcomers and have them make a double take to make sure they are watching the right show. If even for 30 seconds we could have opened on Charlie sitting in her room and crying before she breaks into song, and then the show transitions into this intro, that would have saved a lot of whiplash for first-time viewers and negated any belief that they had been bait and switched. But putting expectations aside, this intro is phenomenal. The melancholic singing, the artistic visual style, and the cryptic but informative visual storytelling. This intro not only showed off how much effort the team is willing to put into the show artistically, but also told the story of Charlie's past through the visuals while telling the struggles and insecurities Charlie deals with in the present. This scene alone tells the conflict of the show with the angels, hints at Charlie's backstory, sings of Charlie's doubts, Charlie's motivations, and proves to the viewer that this show is willing to be unconventional, but not in the pretentious artsy way, but in the way that utilizes the very purpose of art itself, which is to tell a message, a story, or invoke emotion out of the person viewing it, with this case being intrigue and pity. And this intro conveyed all three of those purposes. This intro might be one of the best starts to a pilot I have ever seen in a show. And even though I'm not listening to the song in my free time, the purpose this intro had worked, and for the lack of a better term, is genius. So, after the audience is roped in by the incredible intro, we are immediately introduced to Angel Dust, who in his first scene immediately acts in a way that sets the tone of the show, and lets the viewer know that this is a show that will flippantly talk about sex and drugs, all while swearing throughout it. This was an incredibly smart move, and I love when shows open in a way that makes sure the viewer is prepared for whatever they are about to witness. Right after this, the scene smoothly transitions into introducing Serpentious and Cherry Bomb, which act as the inciting event to be covered by Katie Killjoy, who is in the same studio as Charlie. All of this happens in under 4 minutes, and it didn't feel rushed. The pilot then clearly explains the premise of the show by having Charlie have to report her plans to the news, which is about as an organic way as you can get to make a character make an exposition dump, which is then immediately followed by an amazing Phineas and Ferb-like musical number that is packed with visual gags, set pieces, and character designs that, like the intro song, serve to tell the story of what Charlie wants to accomplish. I shudder to think how much work and effort was put into this single song's visuals, but just like the intro song, I am not impressed. I am in awe of how much attention to detail and effort is put into moments like this. Once the adrenaline of the song calms down, the show loops back to Serpentious, Cherry Bomb, and Angel Dust's battle, which leads to a domino effect of Charlie getting involved in a conflict with Katie Killjoy, ending with a manic spotlight of all the events that are happening simultaneously. At this point, we are almost 15 minutes into the pilot, and despite everything I listed off, not a single moment felt like it dragged on too long or was too rushed. I love this entire pilot, but just the first half of it is so expertly crafted by making every single scene captivating enough so that there is never a dull moment for the viewer's attention to drift away, while making said moments always have a purpose, be it introducing characters, subtle world building, or explaining the premise of the show. But what really ties all these events together is that the transitions between all these set pieces and events are all interwoven together. Just pay attention to how each event shifts to another.
My drugs! Damn it!
Good afternoon, I'm Katie Killjoy.
Break! Suck it up, you little bitch. What's one little brawl gonna cause?
This is actual brilliance. Very, and I mean very, few movies or shows make their transitions count like this, and it's a very big reason as to why the pacing is near perfect in the first half of the pilot. Using this method is what keeps the viewer from feeling like they are being pulled around the show, preventing that whiplash feeling that you can feel in shows that are trying to do so much, like Hazbin Hotel is. And that's not to mention that this method also makes every event feel connected. Like the events of the world are bouncing off each other, and using each other to propel the other one forward, all while making hell feel lived in and shared among the cast. I don't like using the word perfect, but there isn't a single flaw I can find in this half of the pilot, and it goes above and beyond what was necessary to impress me. I simply cannot convey how awe-inducing this pilot is up to this point, and we are only halfway done. After this, we get a slow moment where we get to see the characters bounce off each other so the viewer has a chance to get to know the central members of the cast without there being something big or plot-driven going on. Once they get to the hotel, Charlie has a somber moment where we get to see the sad side of her, which, as I said earlier, really grounds her character. Then we are introduced to Alistair, who was already teased earlier in the show, so the audience already is intrigued in seeing more of him before he's even properly introduced. And then we get the single scene in this pilot that I actively dislike. Vaggy's monologue about Alistair was completely unneeded, and it felt extremely forced so that the audience would be intimidated by him, but having his backstory and implied power told to the audience instead of shown to the audience completely robbed Alistair of the chance to prove how powerful and intimidating he is. Yes, he does showcase his power at the end of the pilot, but by then the viewer very well knows how powerful he is because of the monologue and how he's able to just make things and people appear. So the shock of seeing how powerful he is completely undermined by the time he actually showcases his power, and instead of being intimidated, he just comes off as excessive instead. If this monologue was never here, and instead we just get to see Vaggy and Charlie be on edge and freaking out for reasons that are hidden away from the viewer until Alistair has a chance to show the viewer why Charlie and Vaggy are so intimidated, that would have been extremely captivating throughout the rest of this pilot's runtime, and would have ended the pilot off on a much more shocking wow moment instead of an okay, we get the point, Alistair is powerful moment, which we got instead. Anyways, after this, what other tricks can Hazbin pull to maintain the viewer's attention? Well, if at this point you thought there was nothing else that could possibly keep you interested, we are introduced to not one, but two more characters. And once the novelties of meeting these characters has worn out, we are thrown right into another visually striking musical number paired with a voodoo aesthetic that feels like it's ripped right out of the best scene in Disney's Princess and the Frog, only to be interrupted by a callback to Sir Pentious, and then the show ends with that completely unnecessary scene showing Alistair's power. I don't necessarily mind the ending scene, but for reasons I already have discussed, it really does feel unnecessary and like it was tacked on, and I much rather would have liked to see Alistair finish his song and for the pilot to end with all the characters getting one last moment to show off their personalities. Either way, the overall point I have been trying to make is that this show's pacing is near flawless, always making sure something new or intriguing is happening and never feeling like it's wasting the viewer's time. This pilot feels like it's deliberately trying to impress you with how much is going on, and under most circumstances, shows that do this come across as trying too hard, but Hazbin is different, because nearly every attempt it makes at trying to keep your attention works exceptionally. I am of the strong belief that shows should either be captivating or entertaining before anything else, and with how much this pilot delivers and how good it is at delivering it, it not only succeeded at being both captivating and entertaining, but it excelled at it. So at this point you may be thinking I am exaggerating how good this pilot is, and that surely there are flaws that I'm going to point out. Well, with the exception of Vaggy as a character and her monologue scene, yes, there is one more flaw that I should mention. For some reason, this pilot really likes its sound effects, to the point where it can be distracting. Now, I don't find this to be a big issue, but it is noticeable enough to be worth giving a passing mention. I want you to listen to this scene for a moment.
I don't touch the gays. I have standards.
Yeah? How's that working out for you?
Look, my time is money, so I'll keep this short. You're not here because we wanted you here. You're here because Jeffrey couldn't make it for his cannibal cooking segment. You might be some royal big shot, but that doesn't mean shit to me. I'm too rich and too influential to give a flying fuck about what some tuck-swearing demon princess wants to advertise.
In case you weren't counting, there were 10 different sound effects used in that clip, not counting the bone cracking Katie Killjoy emits when she's moving. In the show's defense, this moment was easily the worst offender of this issue, but once you notice it, it's really hard to not notice again. But like I said, it's really not that big of a deal, and more like a byproduct of the pilot trying to be as extra as possible going badly. But of all the times this pilot tries to be extra, this is the only time where it didn't work, whereas all the other attempts that were made only made me love the pilot more. Firstly, this show's character designs. I know this isn't exactly news, but Vivian Medrano's character designs are phenomenal, and I'm not just talking about the main cast. Every character, be it a main one or a background one, has a unique design that is subtly connected to who they were when they were alive, usually by referencing the time period in which they died, from Tom Trench having died in World War I to Angel Dust in the 1940s. This could have been where the line was drawn, but to add to that, every character is given a unique silhouette based on an animal and then dipped in a vibrant color scheme. If the three central rules to character design are palette, exaggeration, and silhouette, Vivian Medrano completely understood and mastered those rules. Secondly, there are moments throughout the pilot where we see nothing but the characters' silhouettes, contrasted to a vibrant background that is so unnecessarily stylish, but every time it happens, I adore it. Lastly, this may be a small one, but after Charlie's fight with Katie Killjoy, Charlie's jacket is damaged, so she takes it off midway through the episode so that she's just wearing her shirt. I don't know if this is only me, but I love it when a character has an outfit change midway through episodes for a realistic reason, like getting their clothes dirty or accommodating for weather. I've always hated the animation rule, where a character is always wearing the same exact outfit, so to see Charlie change outfits for a realistic reason made me so happy. Now it's time to move on to the big one. The topic that everyone has a strong opinion on, and Vivian Medrano's most distinctive calling card, the comedy. As I'm sure anyone watching this would know, Vivian Medrano is infamous for her entire comedic style just consisting of swearing and sex jokes. And while that is of course present in this pilot, I don't think she has ever handled this comedic style better than she did in this pilot. In fact, if you pay close attention, most of the swearing and sex jokes are all delivered exclusively from Angel Dust. Sure, there are some exceptions here and there, but Angel Dust almost acts as a containment center for this style of humor. When Angel Dust isn't on screen, the humor is actually more in line with a typical cartoon relying on subverting expectations and visual humor to make the viewer laugh instead of just mindless swearing. I'm not going to say that this pilot's humor is the best thing to grace the animation industry and completely disproves the written by Vivzipop meme, but I genuinely think that generalizing this pilot's humor as nothing more than swearing and sex jokes is a flat-out lie. The visual humor here can be really clever at times. Some sex jokes have great timing and payoff, and wouldn't you believe it, there are some legitimately edgy jokes in this pilot that are a reminder of what Vivian used to let slide in her early work that is completely absent in her recent projects.
I'd say it's a pleasure to meet you, but that would be a lie. You can put that away. I don't touch the gays. I have standards.
Fine, I'll try. Just don't get your taco in a twist, baby.
Was that you trying to be sexist or racist?
Whatever pisses you off more.
Hazbin Hotel may no longer be the crown jewel of web animation, but it more than lives up to its legacy. The sheer amount of effort and care put into this pilot is still unrivaled to this day, and impressed me in just about every category a show can have. It fulfills every requirement a pilot should have by effectively introducing the viewer to the cast and conveying what the premise of the show following the pilot will be like. It's really sad that a masterpiece of animation like this has to be associated with such a controversial showrunner, because despite nearly everyone on the internet knowing what Hazbin Hotel is, I truly do think the artistic prowess of this pilot is underappreciated. This piece of animation and the story following it is truly inspiring in a time of what many would call is the dark age of animation, and even if the full show doesn't live up to the expectations that Vivian Medrano's magnum opus set, I will die defending the pilot of Hazbin Hotel as one of the best and most important pieces of animation in the modern age.
On the condition that there be no trickster voodoo strings attached.